Moshe now was reiterating or reviewing what transpired in the past 40 years. And he's giving them musar, he's giving them rebuke for the past, because he's not going to be there to lead them or to correct their ways. So for two reasons. So here the Ramban says something interesting. When you give musar, when you admonish a person, it's for two reasons. It's to make him aware that he's vulnerable to certain situations, which initially he wasn't aware of, and to remind people that we're very susceptible to many influences. That's one of the values of giving rebuke. This is Ramban. Secondly, he explains that when you review the past and you see where you're at today, you understand that even when you fail, you could recover. To point out the Rachmei Hashem, God's mercy, that regardless of how badly they failed in the past, Hashem forgave them. And by understanding that everything is within the context of forgiveness, as badly as we fail, we'll always come back, because we'll never feel we're too far gone to come back. That's the value of reminding a person of the past, of his past misdeeds, his past transgressions, that although the Jews failed so seriously and terribly in the past, whether it was the Chet Egel, whether it was the Meraglim, whatever it is, nevertheless, it's all forgivable. Because very often we have whisperings in our ears that the Yetzer Hara tells us, you're too far gone. You're hopeless. A Jew is never hopeless. Regardless of how far we've gone astray, we're always to come back. And proof is, Moshe is reminding them of the past. So going into the future, just as in the past, as far as they strayed, Hashem accepted them back when they did tshuva. Identity in the future, as much as they may stray in the future, Hashem will accept them back. So the Rambani concludes, David Mel says, Ki imcha slicha lamanti vorei. What does David mean? Because forgiveness is with you, therefore we fear God. What is the meaning of that? So he explains. A person is controlled by a tyrant. What's the point of behaving? It's hopeless. Ultimately, you're always going to lose at the end of the day. No. Because God has showed us that he's always forgiving, it's worthwhile to fear him. It's fear him because even when we fail, he's always in a mindset that if we do it correctly, he will accept us back. Now, this is interesting. So we're speaking about Moshe's giving Musar, admonishing us for the past, to remind us of our vulnerabilities, and also how merciful he is that he's forgiving. It's the 40th year, the 11th month, the first of the month. What is this? This is just a week before he passes away. Moshe Rabbeinu passes away on Zayin Adar, the 7th Adar, which is the 11th month. No, it's not the 11th month, it's the Shvat. In Shvat, the 1st of Shvat, he will pass away Zayin Adar. Dirba Moshe el bnei Yisrael kol hashetziv Hashem oso lemor. He spoke to them all that Hashem had commanded him to say to them. So Rashi over here explains, Melamed shlo chichon el v'somach lemiso. Moshe Rabbeinu, he only rebuked him soon before he passed away. Why? Mi Lomad, mi Yaakov. He learned this from Yaakov. When he's right before he passed away, he blessed his children, but he rebuked them simultaneously, which was right before he passed away. Omar, Reuven was his eldest, his Bechor. When Reuven had failed years earlier, when Rachel passed away, and he had taken the bed of lay of his father's bed and put it into the tent of his father, it happened not right before he died. But Yaakov did not rebuke him immediately. Because I was concerned that if I rebuke you too early, you may not be able to face me, and you don't have to be associated with my brother Esav. The 4 reasons one does not rebuke a person only before he dies. Firstly, you warn a person once. If a person has to warn a person more than once, ultimately, the rebuke loses its value. So therefore, you do it once. This is very important. Another reason why is because if every time after you rebuke me, I see you, there's a level of embarrassment and shame, and people cannot deal with shame, therefore they flee. And they go into an area, and if you're not in the presence of that person, it could be not good. It's interesting. Shlomo tells us in Mishlei, Al tochech letz, kisna eko. Don't reprimand a deprecator because he will hate you. But you should rebuke a chocham v'yaveko. A chocham will love you. Why? A deprecator, he doesn't see his own fault. He only sees fault in other people. So when you rebuke him, he actually takes offense to this. He's speaking to the wrong person. As a result of that, yisna eko, he will hate you. However, when you rebuke a chocham understands, a wise man understands nobody's perfect. And we always have our blind spots. Therefore, when you rebuke him and you point out where he failed or you point out his vulnerabilities, he's appreciative because now you're advising him, helping him, assisting him that he shouldn't fail again. These are the words of Shlomo Melech. So seemingly it's slightly difficult. Yaakov Avinu did not rebuke his children only before he died because he was concerned that if he rebukes Reuven too early, he may flee and go to Esav. Yaakov's children were chachamim. They were not deprecators. If that's the case, Shlomo says, when you rebuke a chacham, v'yaveko, he will love you. So if that's the case, Yaakov should have reprimanded and rebuked his children earlier, and they would have loved him for this. So I think the difference is this. He's pointing out when you rebuke a person, there's a degree of shame. Even though he admits and he loves you and is appreciative that you told him and pointed out his failings, so he won't do it again. But nevertheless, there is a certain degree of shame. And a person has difficulty dealing with shame. And as a result of that, if you have difficulty dealing with shame, there's no point in rebuking immediately because the person is going to avoid you. And it's more important you should be under his influence, not be under his influence. We shouldn't read this wrongly. A person misbehaves. And if you don't rebuke him, he's going to misbehave again. Of course, you should rebuke him again. Right? When you raise a child, right? He has to be disciplined. And you have to point out that he did the wrong thing. Because if you don't, he's going to repeat it and do other things. Yaakov understood Reuven's mistake. He made a mistake once. Once he made a mistake. But why did he hold off to rebuke him? He could have rebuked him immediately. He knows he's not going to do it again. It was important for Reuven to be under the influence of Yaakov for his whole life. If he rebukes him earlier, he'll have that shame. He won't be able to face his father. He's going to Esav. As a result of that, he says, what's the point of rebuking him earlier? If I rebuke him earlier, he's going to lose all that influence. He will not be under the influence of his father. But if a person, of course, misbehaves and he's going to continue to misbehave, of course, you have to rebuke him. Because if you don't rebuke him, he's going to continuously fail, and therefore he's going to be in a worse position than rather being in a better position for that reason.
Rabbi, you recording or should we wait?
Pasuk Dalet. When did he begin admonishing them, rebuking them. After he had smitten Sichon, the king of Amori, who his territory was Cheshbon, after he had killed both giants and they had conquered their territory. So Rashi says, Oma Moshe, if I should start rebuking them before they went partially into the land, before the conquest starts, Yom Ramallah Zolenu, what does this man want from us? Mahetiv Lanu, what good did he display for us? You know, you promise a person the world, you never deliver, and all you do is continuously criticize and rebuke. He's only coming to criticize us and to find fault in us. You know why? Because factually, he doesn't have the ability to deliver. As a result of that, the rebuke will not be taken seriously. They'll turn a deaf ear on him. So Moshe Rabbeinu waited first to topple the giants, to show them that originally what the Meraglim had said, it's impossible to conquer the land because they're giants, to show them there's nothing beyond Hashem's will, that you can. And they conquered the territory. And then when they show them that ultimately, if they behave, they will merit as they merited at this point, therefore they'll be receptive to his musar, to his rebuke. So it's also important. You know, people, they're always criticizing. And what do they say? Well, it's constructive criticism. Never give a compliment, ever. Well, but this is all in your best interest. You know something? If you really value me, how come you never pointed out any positive value in my existence? All I hear is criticism, but it's all constructive. It may be constructive, but factually speaking, it's clear that you don't in any way see me in a positive light because all you find is fault, and you don't ever find anything positive. The same idea. A person's only going to be receptive. You know, the Gemara tells us in Sanhedrin that when a person gives musar, you have to be hayamin mekariv hasmol dochik. That even when you're pushing away with your left hand, simultaneously, you have to bring the person close with your right hand. You have to display to that person a positive feeling towards him and a value, and only then, when you push him away with your left hand, pushing away will have its value. The person will be receptive to that distancing, understanding that the person is within the proximity that he could be brought close, because the person who's rebuking him is bringing him close for that reason.